Welcome to a new update. It is the day after we've seen some new news regarding Binance. So we're going to discuss Binance and everything that's happening in the SEC. We're going to look at the markets because the markets are also a little bit shaky at this point. We're going to do that in this update. We are not discussing macroeconomics today. We'll be doing that next week, as next week it's going to be a big week when it comes to the Fed and CPI. But before we continue, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also check out our other social media channels where I'm sharing my charts and more. Also, the R for the previous month is 21R, and we have now given the trial week members the ability to be speaking all the servers and all the channels, and also providing one-on-one ticketing assistance for you if you want to become a member with us. So make sure to check out the trial week, which you can find in the description beneath, where you can test it out for 1 week for free. And if you like it and you like the community, just make sure you join, as we are all here to improve ourselves. Now, when we're looking at the markets are looking at a shaky ground at this point. There are a few altcoins that are doing really well. XRP is looking at a potential breakout. Litecoin needs some bounce, but it's not showing ultra weakness, while on the other hand, a specific group of altcoins is showing weakness because they were mentioned into a suit or into a case from the SEC towards Coinbase and Binance. So what did take place? On Tuesday, we've had the first news, which was that Binance got sued by the SEC. There were 13 charges against Binance and CZ, and yesterday some new news came out that CZ has to be there in court, but he doesn't need to show up in person, but he just needs to respond to a few things. And there is a lot of FUD taking place in the market right now, hence why the markets have been dropping when it comes to BNB, hence why the markets are shaky at this point. Now, Gary Gensler is suing Binance. Well, in 2019, he offered to serve as an advisor for Binance. Then he became the SEC chairman in 2021, and now he starts to sue Binance. But I think ultimately the SEC didn't sue FTX. He didn't sue SPF. They are not suing anything related to Voyager, Celsius, or anything else. They start suing Binance, and they start suing Coinbase, which is being sued for being an unregistered broker. And being an unregistered broker, while they have actually been allowing Coinbase to do an IPO, it's just a little bit of a joke, especially since the certain group of coins that I mentioned before are currently getting pain because they have been taken from a screenshot out of the entire pages. And it's just a screenshot of the top trending coins, the top traded coins at that point. And those are classified as unregistered securities. ETH is excluded, but those coins are included. And now they are getting a sell-off. So that's what we're seeing in the market right now. I think this entire news-related wind or news-related events will just go away at some point. But Gary Gensler quoted last day, as you can see, we don't need more digital currency. We have digital currency. It's called the US dollar. So he wants to create a CBDC. That is the theory of Europe, and that's the theory of the US. That is also what we're seeing here currently with the markets, which means that Asia is taking a progressive outlook, US is taking a relatively negative outlook, and they try to ban crypto, while actually being progressive is more beneficial. So we've had a relatively harsh reaction to the markets in the sense that we've had a correction. We bounced back up as then the news on Coinbase came, and now we are back into ranging around, just finding out our new equilibrium and again correlating ourselves with Nasdaq. Yesterday we have been correcting. Why was that? Well, that was also the case due to the Nasdaq and the indices correcting a little bit. As you can see here, the Nasdaq is having a slight corrective move. At least on the daily ground, we have had a pretty harsh correction taking place here. Today is also with some filled with some macroeconomic news, especially next week is going to be the bigger one. But what we can conclude on the Nasdaq is that we're currently having an upwards trend. So let's have a little bit of an outlook on the macroeconomics before we swap towards crypto. The macroeconomics, The Nasdaq is currently trending up again. Of course, we can have a little bit more swift correction taking place, but usually during uptrends you don't have those heavy corrections at all. You just slowly continue grinding, as we have been seeing here too. Harsh correction, rounded bottom, breaking the high, constant higher lows being made, and you are looking for a new higher low at this point. And also on the daily view, you're looking for some bounce back up, as that's probably where we want to see some expansion. So you want to see continuation. If we take out this low, that's going to end up by another correction of 1.5 to 2%. But that is probably additionally a reason why crypto has been seeing some weakness overall. Now, when we're looking at the overall thesis, gold currently consolidating, just going sideways, very similar outlook to Bitcoin. However, gold is at all-time highs and Bitcoin is still swimming around 25k. Gold is currently consolidating. I mentioned before there are a few levels that you're looking at. In this case, you're looking at a case where gold is going to test either 1910 or 1860. Those are the levels you're looking at for a potential case if we are not able to break back above $2,000. The more important ones are the US dollar currency index, which as a matter of fact is currently also consolidating, as we can see. We are still making lower highs, lower lows, and we are creating ourselves into inherent bearish divergence. The monthly candle is also looking like we're going to continue falling down. Now the lower time frames are stating that we're currently into resistance zone. This entire area that I marked here is the area where I find resistance important. If we break through it and are able to flip the level 104.6, that is the area where I think the markets are going to accelerate again when it comes to the dollar, and when the markets are going to accelerate to the downside for crypto, which means that you clearly want to see the DXY start to turn around here. And if we look at it clearly, we start to roll over. So if we are going to have a test taking place at the lower parts here again, that is probably the moment that we start to squeeze through, and that's going to push the indices back up. If we are able to continue higher, I clearly don't want to see a breaker above 104.60. When we're looking at the 2-year yields, we can see that the yields are currently running up, and that is because the markets are expecting to have another rate hike taking place, and maybe even two, because the arguments are just there, and the Fed didn't really mention that they are going to pause the entire rate hike procedure. So in that case, we are looking at a potential continuation of those hikes, although we are still into a resistance area when it comes to the yields, which means that we're just in the distribution here for the yields, through which I'm expecting that we're going to have a turnaround here quite soon too. Whether or not we're going to sweep the high one more time, but it looks likely that if we have that sweep, it's going to be the top, and that we are close towards a reversal here, especially as we know that the CPI data in Europe has been really soft, through which we can assume that the data in the US is going to be soft soon as well. Now, going back towards crypto, the only chart that I'm mostly focused on right now is the chart that we have here, which is the total market cap chart, which is 200-week MA, 200-week EMA, which is currently landing on a 200-week MA and EMA. In the coming 1 to 2 weeks, we are going to see whether this is going to be the end of the correction or whether we are going to fall through and have another 25 to 30% drop, which means that I think that Bitcoin goes to 20k. If the markets are going to bottom out here, this is the ultimate buy trigger, which means that this is the zone that we must hold if we want to do anything related to any upside at this point in the markets. So that's what I'm looking at. Additionally, what you can also argument is that 1 year prior to the halving, that is usually the moment when we can have a run taking place. So it's very comparable in terms of price action to the period that we've witnessed here in 2016, in which we were also consolidating and started to have a very long consolidation period before we started to break out. Here we had a pretty substantial consolidation period in which we retest the previous area, go sideways, break back to the highs, go sideways, and then we break out. In this case, that would mean that we hold this level here at 1 trillion, rally back towards 1.26, go sideways for a little bit, and then at the end of Q3, going into Q4, we've got this rally going upwards here before we have got the correction of the halving of a retest here, and then we continue the bull cycle. That is my thesis that we're looking at here. That didn't change at all. We're still looking at the exact same thesis here as the markets are currently progressing into still some uncertainty. If we're looking at Binance coin, that is obviously the coin that is currently showing weakness in the sense that we've had this harsh correction. The funding is also flipping into negative, which means that people are eager to short Binance coin at this point, and we've been losing important levels. If Binance coin is going to lose these two lows here too, you could definitely say, if there is a scenario where we are clearly not getting above any of these two regions here, potentially even this low, if we are consolidating beneath, then I'm looking for a case where we potentially are going to take these two lows, and then we can look at 135 next. That is in the worst case. If we're going to have another drop and we take out these lows too, I would assume that around $200 is the long entry. If we break back above, then this entire correction is done, given that the RSI is currently in regions that we've not seen many times in the history. And every time when we saw it, last time was COVID-19, and the previous time was during the Luna crash. If it is reversing from here, that would say that we're going to have a pretty substantial run back up, and that the entire topic of weakness is changing into strength, and then we're getting close towards the bottom. So I'm definitely keen on watching the area between 265 to 270. Those are the ranges for Binance coin that I'm looking at for potential entry points. Now, what is looking good at this point still? Well, if you look at it, I think Ether is not looking bad from a weekly perspective. It's still very early. If Ether is able to grind its way and close around 1850 or 1835 to 1850, and next week we are getting an engulfing, that is probably the trigger that we continue the momentum here. And that is mostly fueled by the fact that Ether against Bitcoin starting to show strength, but it needs to pace up. If it doesn't, then we've got another lower high, and we're looking for a new lower low here too. The few altcoins that are most likely the most interesting at this point are Litecoin, which is still consolidating and ready for the altcoin halving or the Litecoin halving rally, which can start in the next few weeks. The second one that's important to keep an eye on is XRP. This one is about to blast out of the markets, and I think that we can easily accelerate towards above $1 if we are able to break out of this accumulation. So these two are ones that you should be focusing on, and I'll be discussing that more in the Saturday update. Ciao.